Captain James Holloway crouched behind a jagged rock, breathing heavily. The wind whipped dust into his face, stinging his eyes, but he barely noticed. Around him, the battlefield was silent in a strange, tense way. Above, the enemy fleet hung like a black cloud, their ships ready to strike. Every movement of his body, every decision could mean the difference between life and death, not just for him but for everyone who had been watching. All across the planet, millions of screens were tuned in to the battle. Families huddled together in their homes, workers paused at their stations, children clung to parents, and soldiers held their weapons tightly. They were all waiting for him to fail. The council, the commanders, the generals, they had assumed that a single human soldier would have no choice but to surrender. They had assumed wrong. James adjusted his grip on his rifle. It was small, worn, and nothing compared to the heavy weapons of the enemy, but it was his. He checked the ammunition once more, feeling the cold metal against his fingers. It was a simple rifle, but in his hands, it was more than that. It was a symbol of human defiance. He took a deep breath and listened to the quiet hum of the distant ships, the wind over the rocky cliffs, and the soft whispers of the planet watching him. He remembered how he had arrived here, alone. The mission had been nearly impossible, a strike to delay the enemy fleet long enough for the evacuation of civilians. Every step of the way his team had fallen one by one to the relentless attacks. He had buried friends, comrades who had laughed with him, shared stories, and fought bravely. Now he was the last one standing. And still he refused to surrender. From his position he could see the first wave of enemy drones descending. They moved like shadows, silent and precise. James aimed carefully and fired. One drone went down, sparks flying into the air. Another followed, and another. Even though the enemy had numbers, even though they had weapons that could tear through mountains, he could see something in their formation. Hesitation. They were not expecting this kind of resistance. They had assumed he would panic, but he did not. Time seemed to stretch. Every second was heavy, every heartbeat loud in his chest. He ducked as energy bolts streaked past, striking the ground near his cover. Rocks exploded into dust, sending small pebbles into the air. He gritted his teeth and crawled forward, moving from one rock to the next. Each step was careful, deliberate. Every move was a message. He would not give in. In the silence between attacks, James could hear voices, messages transmitted to the planet. Some were shouts of anger from the enemy, orders barking through their comms. Some were whispers of hope from the humans watching. He is still alive. He is standing. He will not fall. It was strange to feel so small and so important at the same time. He had never imagined that one human could hold the attention of a whole world. Yet here he was, the weight of hope pressing against his shoulders. He took another shot at a drone that moved too close. Sparks flew and it crashed into the rocky terrain. Then another and another. For a moment, he felt a spark of satisfaction, but there was no time to celebrate. The enemy had more, far more, and they were learning. He needed to adapt. James scanned the battlefield with sharp eyes. The terrain was rugged, full of natural formations that he could use to his advantage. He remembered the training, the simulations, and the stories of human soldiers who had fought against overwhelming odds. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most numerous, but they were clever. They could think. They could improvise. And James planned to show that now. He spotted a narrow path between two cliffs. It was risky, but it could give him a better angle. He moved swiftly, keeping low, and fired as he went. One of the enemy drones swooped down toward him, but he rolled to the side and shot the control panel at its base. It sparked and fell, spinning out of control. Another drone veered off, unsure of the sudden human tactics. Every small victory lifted him, even as the enemy closed in. He was not just fighting machines, he was fighting the expectation that humans could be crushed, that courage meant nothing against the power of an entire planet. With every shot, every movement, he defied them. His spirit was unbroken. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the rocky battlefield. The light glinted off the metal of his rifle, off the broken drones, and onto his face, streaked with dirt and sweat. James felt the exhaustion, the hunger, the pain in his muscles, but he did not stop. He could not stop. People were watching. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for hope, for the belief that humans could stand against impossible odds. Then, as night began to fall, something remarkable happened. Across the planet, people began to whisper, to cheer, to believe. In homes, in shelters, in hidden corners of cities, humans spoke of him not as a soldier but as a symbol. If he can stand alone, we can stand together. The enemy might have seen only one man, but the humans saw courage. They saw determination. They saw what one human could do when refusing to give in. James crouched behind the last large boulder, surveying the battlefield. The enemy fleet was massive, but they were faltering just slightly. One human, he realized, could make them hesitate, could force them to second-guess, could plant doubt in the minds of thousands of soldiers. And doubt was a weapon far more powerful than any cannon or missile. He adjusted his grip on the rifle and whispered to himself, "I will not fall. Not today. Not ever." His words were simple, but they carried weight. The wind carried them across the battlefield, across the planet, and into the ears of those watching through screens. For the first time, he felt the power of hope ripple through him, not as fear, not as doubt, but as a force stronger than any enemy. The first stars appeared in the sky above, glimmering faintly through the smoke and dust. James took a deep breath and stood upright, facing the approaching drones and ships. He was tired, battered, and alone, but he was not afraid. Every human watching now saw the same thing he felt in his chest. Courage could not be measured by size or strength. It could not be crushed by numbers. One human could stand against millions, and that one human was him. And so, Captain James Holloway raised his rifle, took aim at the next wave of enemies and fired. Sparks flew, metal shattered, and the night echoed with the sound of resistance. In that moment he was more than a soldier. He was a symbol. He was hope. He was human. No one on the planet would forget this day. Captain James Holloway had barely caught his breath when a strange hum filled the sky above the battlefield. He froze, squinting against the glare of the setting sun and the dark shapes of the enemy ships. Then he saw it, a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light. It hovered silently above the rocks, motionless yet undeniably present. James's mind raced. Was it another enemy weapon? A trick? He tightened his grip on his rifle, scanning for signs of attack. But nothing came. The ship simply floated, calm and deliberate. And then, in a way he could not explain, he heard a voice, not through any speaker, not in any language he knew, but in his mind. Clear, precise, and strange. "Human," it said. "Why do you resist?" James stumbled back, raising his hand. "Who are you?" he thought. The voice replied almost instantly, calm but firm. "I am Lyra. I am not your enemy. I watch. I wait. You have courage. I must see if it is worth saving." James stared at the hovering ship. It was alien, beautiful, and terrifying all at once. The hum of its energy vibrated in his chest. He could feel it probing, testing, weighing him. He swallowed, trying to steady his mind. "You want to know if humans are worth saving?" he thought. "Then watch what we can do." He moved quickly, signaling to himself as much as to the ship. The enemy drones had regrouped, circling like dark birds, waiting to strike again. James ducked behind a ridge and fired carefully at one of the advancing drones, hitting it precisely in the control panel. Sparks flew, and the drone crashed noisily into the rocky ground. Lyra's presence seemed to react. The ship glimmered brighter, and the voice returned. "Clever. You think and act. Humans are not without skill." James allowed a small smile. "You have seen enough to know we survive even against impossible odds." The alien voice paused, then said, "Perhaps. But survival alone is not enough. I must see courage, ingenuity, and the will to act when all is lost." Over the next hour, James and Lyra began a silent dance of war. The alien ship moved with him, mirroring his actions, scanning the battlefield, observing the enemy. When drones descended from the cliffs, James anticipated their path, firing in ways that forced them into traps he had laid with debris and rocks. Lyra adjusted the ship's shield subtly, deflecting attacks that would have killed him. The connection between them grew, strange and unspoken, a partnership that transcended language and species. James realized something extraordinary. The alien did not just want to help, it wanted to understand. It tested him, observing how he made choices, how he valued life, how he calculated risk. Every decision mattered. When he chose to save a small group of human civilians stranded near a canyon, rather than pursue an easy target, Lyra's voice reflected surprise and approval. "You risk yourself for others. Uncommon. Admirable." He nodded, his jaw tight. "Humans are worth saving. We fight not just to survive but to protect those who cannot fight." Lyra's ship shifted closer, glowing softly. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps your species deserves another chance. But I will not act without proof. You must show more than courage. You must show strategy, heart, and will." The enemy forces, sensing the threat of this strange new ally, became more aggressive. James ducked behind a boulder as a wave of drones surged forward. Their numbers were overwhelming, and the enemy was clever, adapting to his previous traps. But with Lyra's guidance, communicated through thought and vision, James found ways to outmaneuver them. He guided her to create diversions, using her ship to reflect light and confuse sensors, while he led the enemy into narrow passes and rocky canyons where their numbers became a disadvantage. As night fell completely, the battlefield was lit with the flashes of weapon fire, the shimmering glow of Lyra's ship, and the sparks of destroyed drones. James moved with a confidence he had never known. The rhythm of battle, the connection with an alien ally, and the knowledge that the entire planet was watching gave him strength. Every move he made was precise, every shot calculated. And through it all, he felt that the alien was learning, testing, and slowly acknowledging him. During a brief pause in the fighting, James crouched behind a large boulder, breathing heavily. He looked up at the ship, now hovering silently above, its surface glowing softly. "What do you want from me?" he thought. Lyra's reply came as a whisper in his mind. "I want proof. Show me your species' heart. Show me what makes humans more than survival machines. Show me why you fight when the odds are impossible." James's eyes narrowed. He knew exactly what she meant. This was more than skill, this was humanity itself. It was the stubbornness to hope, the desire to protect others, the cleverness to turn nothing into something. He straightened, determination settling in his chest. "Then watch closely," he thought. "I will show you what humans are capable of." He moved out from behind cover, deliberately exposing himself to draw the enemy into pursuit. As they followed, he led them on a winding chase through rocky terrain, using narrow canyons to slow their movement and force drones into collisions. Lyra mirrored his actions perfectly, guiding her ship to block escape routes, disorient sensors, and amplify the confusion. The enemy was clever, but they had never faced anything like this. A single human fighting with intelligence, courage, and the support of an alien ally whose motives were still unclear. Hours passed in this tense rhythm. James's body ached, hunger gnawed at him, and exhaustion weighed on his mind, but he did not falter. Each small victory was a message, not just to the enemy but to Lyra, to the planet, and to himself. Humans could think, adapt, and endure. Humans could inspire allies, even alien ones. Humans could defy expectation. Finally, after what felt like endless waves of attacks, the enemy fleet began to pull back slightly. Confusion and doubt spread through their ranks. James had proven something. One human, clever and brave, could bend the tide of battle, especially with an ally who could see and understand the value of humanity. Lyra's voice came, softer now, almost approving. "You have shown skill, courage, and heart. I see now why your species may be worth saving." James allowed himself a small nod. He did not smile, not yet. There was still work to do, still a battle to finish. But a strange hope had entered the battlefield. Hope that humans were not alone, hope that courage could attract allies even from beyond the stars. Together, human and alien, soldier and observer, they planned their next move. The enemy still had numbers, but James knew that cleverness, courage, and a willingness to act when all seemed lost could turn the tide. With Lyra at his side, he could push the enemy further than anyone had expected. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could prove to the galaxy that humans were more than survival machines. They were thinkers, fighters, and something the universe had not yet learned to underestimate. As night settled fully over the rocky battlefield, James crouched once more, rifle in hand, and whispered to himself, "We will show them. Together we will show them." And in the sky above, Lyra's ship shimmered, silent and patient, a strange but undeniable promise that humans were not alone in the fight, and that their courage had awakened something new. Captain James Holloway moved quietly through the jagged canyons, his rifle held close, eyes scanning every shadow. Behind him, Lyra's ship hovered silently, glowing with a soft alien light. Together they had survived wave after wave of enemy attacks, and now James had one goal: the command center. It was the heart of the enemy's control, the place where decisions were made, where oppression was planned, and where humans had been forced to bow for generations. The humans watching from hidden shelters across the planet were tense. They had heard whispers of James's defiance, seen him fight alone against impossible odds. But now, as he approached the enemy command center, their hope grew. For the first time, they dared to believe that resistance was possible. James crouched behind a rocky outcrop, surveying the massive complex ahead. Towers of metal and glass rose like dark fingers into the sky, guarded by automated turrets and roaming patrol drones. The walls were high, reinforced with energy shields that shimmered with a pale blue light. It seemed impossible to get inside, but James didn't see impossibility. He saw opportunity. Lyra's ship floated close, scanning the structure with sensors beyond human capability. "The shields are powered from the central hub," she communicated telepathically. If we disable the hub, the defenses will fall. But it is heavily guarded. You must act carefully. James nodded, tightening his grip on his rifle. Then we act carefully, and smartly. He darted from rock to rock, using the uneven terrain to avoid detection. Patrol drones passed close, their sensors sweeping, but James waited patiently, striking only when he had the perfect angle. A precise shot at a control panel sent one drone spinning into the wall. Another was disabled with a well-placed blast to its engine. Every move was calculated. Every small victory brought him closer to the command center and closer to proving that humans could defy even the strongest forces. As he approached the main gate, Lyra's voice returned. There is a ventilation shaft. It will lead inside. Few patrols monitor it. James peered at the narrow opening, almost invisible against the metal walls. It was tight, uncomfortable, and risky, but it was the only way in. He signaled to Lyra, who tilted her ship slightly, casting a faint glow over the entrance so he could see. Inside, the air was stale, tinged with the hum of energy and the scent of machinery. James moved silently, every step measured. His mind raced, planning for every possibility, every patrol, every trap. The humans on the planet might not have known his exact location, but their hearts were beating with his courage. They could feel it through the broadcasts, through the whispers of defiance that spread like wildfire. Finally, he reached the control hub. It was massive, with consoles flashing data and energy lines pulsating along the walls. He could hear guards moving above and around, their voices low but commanding. James paused, taking a deep breath. This is it, he thought. One strike and the chains can be broken. Using Lyra's guidance, he planted a small device on the central console. It was alien technology, delicate but powerful, capable of overriding the energy shields and disabling the command systems. He worked quickly, his hands steady despite the pounding of his heart. Sparks flickered as the device integrated with the hub's core. Slowly, the hum of the shields began to fade. Lights dimmed across the command center, and for the first time, the humans watching from hidden corners saw a glimmer of freedom. The enemy guards reacted immediately. Alarms blared and doors slammed shut. James ducked behind a console as blaster fire cut through the room. He fired carefully, disabling a pair of guards without killing more than necessary. He moved swiftly from cover to cover, using the small corridors to his advantage. Each step brought him closer to the core, closer to the final switch that would break the chains holding the planet's people in fear. Lyra hovered outside, her sensors relaying information, her alien mind calculating angles, weak points, and enemy movements. Almost there, she communicated. One more action and the defenses will fall. James's hand hovered over the main control panel. He thought of the humans watching, of the fear they had lived with, and the courage they had begun to feel. They can resist now, he thought. They can stand. I just have to give them the chance. He pressed the switch. A low hum began, then grew into a thunderous pulse that spread through the command center. Lights flickered, alarms went silent, and the energy shields around the planet collapsed like glass breaking. Outside, humans watched in awe as the enemy's power faltered. Patrols stopped in confusion. Drones crashed. For the first time in generations, the people realized that they were not helpless. They could resist. They could fight back. James didn't stop to celebrate. He moved quickly through the corridors, disabling remaining threats, and guiding Lyra to disrupt enemy communications. Each action was precise, each decision guided by skill, courage, and the knowledge that hope was fragile and must be protected. As he reached the roof of the command center, he looked out over the planet. People were leaving their hiding places, inspired by the signal of defiance. They were small in number, unarmed, but their courage was immense. The enemy soldiers were confused, unsure, and for the first time, afraid. James's actions had shown them that ingenuity, courage, and determination could defeat even the strongest oppressors. He felt Lyra's presence beside him, hovering silently. You have done well, she communicated. Your species is stronger than I expected. Courage and strategy can turn the tide even against overwhelming force. James nodded. He did not speak. There was no need. The humans below, the enemy above, and the alien watching him all understood. One human soldier, armed with courage, cleverness, and determination, had changed the battlefield. One human had given an entire planet hope. Even as the night settled over the planet, James knew the work was not over. There would be challenges ahead, decisions to make, and risks to take. But he had proven something essential: humans were not weak. Humans could defy expectation. Humans could break the chains, both literal and metaphorical, that sought to hold them in fear. Below, the people began to cheer, to rise, to move with purpose. James could feel it, the pulse of their courage growing stronger. They no longer needed to follow blindly. They no longer needed to wait for someone else to lead. The spark he had ignited could grow into a fire, and with it, freedom could spread across the planet. He turned to Lyra. This is only the beginning, he thought. The people are awake now. They can fight for themselves. Lyra's ship shimmered with a soft, approving glow. And now the galaxy may see what humans are truly capable. Courage, will, and ingenuity, you have shown them. You have shown me. James took a deep breath, letting the moment settle. For the first time in his life, he understood that one person could matter. One human could matter. And the chains of fear and oppression could be broken, one courageous step at a time. As he looked down at the people below, he felt a rare warmth in his chest, a quiet pride not for himself but for all the humans who now dared to hope. He had given them more than a chance to survive. He had given them a reason to believe. And in that moment, Captain James Holloway realized that courage could inspire courage, and hope could awaken even the most oppressed. The chains were broken and the world had begun to change. Captain James Holloway walked into the great hall of the Planetary Council, his boots echoing on the polished metal floor. The room was enormous, with high ceilings and walls lined with screens showing every part of the planet. The council members sat on raised platforms, their faces stern and unyielding. Around them, elite guards in polished armor held weapons ready, their eyes cold and untrusting. The air was tense, thick with authority and the expectation that James would bow, surrender, or die. James did not flinch. His rifle hung at his side, but more importantly, his head was high, his eyes steady, his heart calm. The council demanded his surrender, their voices echoing across the hall. You have no right to defy us. Lay down your weapon, human, or face destruction. James took a slow breath. He did not speak immediately. He let the silence fill the room, letting every council member, every guard, and even the invisible eyes of the planet's population feel the weight of his presence. Then he spoke, his voice clear and steady. Power alone does not make right. Strength alone does not justify fear. What matters is the heart, the mind, and the courage to act when it is needed most. A murmur ran through the hall. The council had expected fear, anger, or perhaps silence. They had not expected words like these. James took another step forward, meeting the gaze of the council leader, a tall figure with sharp eyes and a voice like steel. You hold weapons, armies, and authority. But those things do not give you wisdom. They do not give you justice. You rule with fear, and fear is not a sign of greatness. It is a sign of weakness. The elite guards shifted uneasily. James's calm confidence, his unwavering stance, and the sheer truth of his words struck a chord even in those trained to obey. The council had not expected that one human soldier, standing alone, could challenge them not with force but with reason. You speak boldly, human, the council leader said, his voice tight. And yet you are alone. One human cannot oppose a planet. James shook his head slightly, letting his eyes sweep across the room. I'm not truly alone. The people of this planet watch, they listen, and they think. They see that courage is stronger than fear. They see that one person can make a difference. You rule through fear, but I inspire hope. And hope is stronger than any weapon you have. He paused, letting his words sink in. The silence that followed was heavy, almost unbearable. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the people outside the hall, humans who had watched his defiance, his bravery, his clever strategies, began to act. They stepped forward, raising their voices. We stand with him. We will not bow. We are not afraid. The guards tensed, unsure how to respond. The council leader's face tightened with disbelief. One human alone had not only defied their power but had sparked courage in the hearts of an entire planet's people. James stepped forward again, raising his voice, not in threat but in truth. You see now that fear is not enough. You see now that power is empty without justice. Listen to your people, not your weapons. Hear their hearts, not your orders. A guard moved forward, stepping between James and the council, but even he hesitated. There was something in the human stance, something undeniable. James looked directly at him, not with anger but with calm confidence. You can serve power or you can serve right. You can follow orders or you can follow courage. The choice is yours. For a long moment the guard said nothing. He glanced at the council, then at James, then at the people outside the hall. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he lowered his weapon. Others followed. One by one the elite guards began to shift, uncertain, hesitant. They had been trained to obey without question, but here, in the presence of courage and truth, their certainty faltered. The council leader slammed a hand on the table. Enough, he shouted. This human cannot sway them. He cannot. James took a step forward, his voice calm, steady, and clear. I do not sway them. They have seen the truth themselves. Fear is not strength. Power is meaningless without purpose. You cannot rule by force forever. Listen to your people and you will see what is right. The murmurs grew louder. The council members could hear it now, the voices rising not in fear but in support. We will not be ruled by fear. We stand with him. We choose courage. For the first time, James realized the full effect of his actions. The humans, once oppressed and afraid, were no longer silent. They were awake. They were speaking. And they were choosing to stand beside him. One human soldier had ignited something more powerful than any weapon: belief. The council leader's face paled. His voice faltered. You cannot, he began, but no words could hold back what had begun. The people's courage was stronger than his threats. Their voices filled the hall, echoing off the metal walls, shaking the foundations of centuries of control. James stepped forward again, not aggressively but with quiet authority. This is your chance to choose right. To lead with justice instead of fear. To save your people instead of oppressing them. You have the power to change. Use it wisely. A council member whispered to another. The hesitation was clear, the doubt spreading. Even those who had never questioned authority felt it now, the undeniable truth that power without heart and mind was hollow. The elite guards, once symbols of control, now looked to their leaders, then to James, then to the people rising in courage outside. Finally, the council leader raised his hands, his face grim but resigned. We will negotiate. James nodded, keeping his rifle at his side but standing firm. Good. Listen to your people. Lead with reason. Choose what is right. The hall grew quiet, filled with tension, relief, and an unspoken understanding. The humans had learned something vital. Courage was contagious. One human soldier, calm and determined, had reminded them that even the strongest oppressors could be challenged, not with weapons alone but with the truth, the mind, and the heart. Outside, the people erupted in cautious celebration. They had seen it. They had believed it. They had understood that defiance was possible, that they did not need to be afraid, that courage could turn the tide. And all of it had begun with James Holloway, the soldier who refused to bow. Lyra hovered silently above the hall, her alien mind observing, calculating, and admiring. Humans are remarkable, she thought. Even one can inspire many. Even one can change the course of a world. James did not look at her. He looked at the council, at the guards, at the rising tide of human courage. He felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the people he had helped awaken. The council had no choice but to listen, to respect the will of the people, and to negotiate peace. And in that moment, James understood something essential. It was not the rifle, the strategy, or even the alien ally that had changed the world. It was courage. It was the refusal to bow. It was the belief that even a single human, standing firm, could remind everyone of what was possible. The council members exchanged hesitant glances, then slowly began discussions. The elite guards lowered their weapons completely. Outside, the people continued to cheer, their voices rising in harmony with hope and belief. One human soldier had done more than survive, he had awakened a planet. James stood tall, breathing steadily, his eyes calm and clear. He knew the fight was far from over, but for the first time he felt that the chains of fear were breaking. The people had seen what one human could do. The council had learned that power alone could not hold them. And in that quiet, powerful truth, a new chapter had begun. One written not by force but by courage, determination, and the heart of a single soldier. Captain James Holloway stood on the high cliff overlooking the planet's capital city. The sun had set hours ago, leaving the sky dark, dotted with stars that glittered like distant fires. Below him, the people moved freely for the first time in generations. They no longer hid in fear. They walked openly, helped one another, and spoke with voices full of hope. The chains that had bound them had been broken, and it was James who had shown them the way. Beside him, Lyra hovered, her alien form glowing faintly in the night air. She had been silent for a long while, observing the humans below and calculating the ripple of change that had begun. Now she turned toward James, her eyes, bright, intelligent, and unhuman, reflecting a kind of admiration that went beyond words. You have done more than I expected, she communicated telepathically. Your courage has awakened them. Your mind has guided them. Your heart has inspired them. James nodded slowly. He did not speak immediately. His mind was busy, reviewing every moment of the long battle, every decision he had made, every risk he had taken. He thought of the first day he had stood alone on the rocky battlefield, facing an entire planet's military forces. Back then he had wondered if one human could matter at all. Now he knew the answer. One human could matter more than anyone imagined. One human could change the fate of millions. Below, he could see families stepping out into the open, children laughing without fear for the first time, workers returning to their tasks with a sense of purpose instead of obedience, and soldiers who had once followed orders blindly now thinking for themselves. Every life touched by his courage was proof that humans were not just survivors. They were creators, thinkers, and catalysts for change. What now? Lyra asked, her voice calm yet curious. The planet is free. The Council has agreed to negotiate. You have completed your mission. What is your next step? James thought for a moment, eyes scanning the horizon where the first faint glimmer of the planet's neighboring moons appeared. We continue, he replied slowly. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as guides. The people must learn to lead themselves. I have shown them courage, but they must find their own strength. That is the true victory. Lyra tilted her head, a gesture that was almost like a smile. Humans are remarkable, she said. You have shown that even the smallest, seemingly weakest among you can defy the strongest. One soldier can influence a world, even a planet. It is a spark that cannot be ignored. James allowed a small smile. He looked up at the stars, scattered across the vast black sky. And that spark does not stop here, he thought. Human courage is not limited to one world. It can travel across space, ignite hope in distant colonies, and remind other species that even the smallest actions can matter. One spark can light a galaxy. He remembered the battles, the losses, the fear that had once gripped him. He remembered the lonely nights, the doubts that crept into his mind, and the moments when it seemed impossible to continue. Yet, in every challenge and every danger, there had been something unshakable within him. The belief that humans could rise above fear, above expectation, and above even the greatest odds. That belief had carried him through, and now it had carried an entire planet to freedom. Below, a group of children ran across the city square, laughing and chasing each other. One of them looked up at the cliff, eyes wide, and pointed. He is there. A small voice shouted. And for a moment, James felt the eyes of the people on him, not with fear or doubt, but with admiration and hope. They understood, even if only instinctively, that he was not just a soldier but a symbol. Lyra floated closer, her presence almost comforting in the cool night air. Do you feel the change? She asked. This planet will never be the same. James nodded. I do. And it is not just because of me. It is because they saw courage in action. They saw that fear is not inevitable, that one person can stand and inspire millions. They will remember this day forever, not as the day the enemy was defeated, but as the day they learned to believe in themselves. He lowered his rifle, letting it hang at his side. He did not feel relief exactly. He felt something deeper, an understanding that courage, intelligence, and compassion were more powerful than any weapon. With these qualities, humans could face anything. The strongest enemies, the deadliest challenges, and even the darkest parts of themselves. Lyra's ship hovered closer, her glow reflecting in the stars above. You have done more than survive, she said. You have taught. You have inspired. You have changed the course of a world. Few of any species could do what you have done. James looked at her, feeling a rare moment of peace. Then we continue together, he said. Not just for this planet but for others. The galaxy is wide, and humans have only begun to show what they can do. For a long moment they stood together, human and alien, looking out over a world transformed. The city below pulsed with life, freedom, and hope. The air was filled with sounds of laughter, conversation, and the simple joy of living without fear. The people had seen courage in action, and now they understood it could exist in every one of them. One soldier changed everything, Lyra said softly. One human defied an entire planet, and in doing so, reminded everyone what it means to be alive, to act with heart, mind, and will. James nodded. Yes. And the lesson does not end here. Humans can rise, inspire, and ignite hope anywhere. It is not about weapons, not about numbers, but about belief. About standing when it matters most. He looked to the stars again, feeling a quiet fire in his chest. Somewhere out there, in distant colonies, in hidden worlds, in places where fear had ruled for generations, humans and others alike could learn from what had happened here. Courage was contagious. Hope could spread across light years. And one human standing firm had proven it. The night was quiet now, except for the soft hum of Lyra's ship and the distant sounds of a planet learning freedom. James felt the weight of the moment, the significance of what he had done. He had not simply survived. He had acted, inspired, and changed the course of history. Finally he spoke softly, almost to himself. This is only the beginning. The stars are waiting. The galaxy is watching. And humans can rise anywhere. Lyra's glow brightened slightly, a gesture that James had learned was her version of a smile. Together, human and alien, they looked up at the infinite sky, knowing that the spark of courage they had lit would travel far beyond this one world. One soldier had defied an entire planet. One human had reminded a species, and perhaps the galaxy, that even the smallest, simplest individual could change the course of worlds. And as the stars stretched endlessly above them, Captain James Holloway felt for the first time the quiet certainty that humanity's courage was not just survival, it was a spark that could ignite hope anywhere.